Saturday edition of The Handle here on DraftKings Network and VSiN. Matt Brown, Mike Somich coming to you, proudly brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook. And Mike, glad to be back in the saddle here. A little bit later, we'll talk all things that you love, you know, ponies and pucks and all the different stuff like that. Listen, there's a lot to be excited about. This is a really interesting time of the sports calendar, but you know why today has me so incredibly excited?
I actually do. This is a great weekend for you to be back, Matt. We got UFC 299 tonight, and I'm guessing that's what's got you the most jacked up.
No, wrong.
What?
The time change, buddy. We get an hour of sunlight back in our lives. We get an extra hour to go out and enjoy all that Mother Nature has given us. And let me tell you, that has me jacked up. I don't want to hear anything about this whole you lose an hour of sleep nonsense, because your body adjusts after like 2 days. Oh my God, 2 days of inconvenience to get an extra hour of sunlight in our lives and make us more active and feel better all about ourselves and everything that we're doing in life. Kids get to go outside for longer and play. It's the greatest thing ever. I cannot believe we don't just stay on this daylight savings time, but guess what? We get it back tonight, and I'm very happy about it.
You know, the one knock on it, my dog doesn't realize we get it back tonight. So she will be getting up an hour earlier expecting to be fed, which means that like we're going to start hearing the whining and the scratches on the door at like 5 a.m. in the morning. If we could get the dog to understand that the time changed as well, that would be great. Yeah. That's something that takes a little bit longer, Matt. So that's the one knock on it for me.
I got you. Other than that, I mean, listen, it's great for sports. I mean, listen, it's everything about it is so good. So jacked for that. But you know what? We got 5 other things that we're jacked up about.
All right, classic. High five.
It's time for the Handle's High Five.
High five. All right.
Number 1.
Yes, it is the 5 things we are looking forward to betting today. And number 1 on the list is UFC 299. As you said, just incredibly stacked card up and down. The main card is absolute fire. Can I say that? Is that like, am I dating myself when I say that? Like, I know the kids don't say that anymore.
Yeah, I think fire's kind of out now, Matt.
Yeah, so whatever it is, insert 22-year-old word for awesome, whatever that might be, here for UFC 299. But let me tell you, the main card, I know it's expensive. I know that, you know, not everyone. Give us some buddies. Y'all all chip in. Do what you got to do. But this one is absolutely worth it. 5 bangers on the UFC 299 main card. Jimmy Smith will join us a little bit later to give us his thoughts on this card as well. But I've got me some bets in the account. You and I will talk about what we like and dislike about this one for sure. But regardless, no matter how you look at it, it is going to be an entertaining night, UFC 299 over in Miami.
It is going to be one, and it caps off with O'Malley and Vera in the final fight, and that's the one I'm most excited to talk about with both you and our guest today for one specific reason. I've gone back and forth on this fight, and you've got Vera, who's plus 210 right now. O'Malley, very dangerous early. Vera, one of those fighters that if he can make this fight last longer, seems like he's got a legitimate shot to win. So I'm interested in both your take and our guest take here before I put my bet in on the main event.
Yeah, it is. There are different angles, I think, for 3 of these 5 and maybe even 4 of these 5. It's kind of if you like this guy, then maybe the path is this. If you like this guy, then maybe the path is this, and maybe this is the alternate way to go about it. So again, we'll break all of that down whenever we get to it, but let's keep it rolling.
Number 2.
We got the Arnold Palmer Invitational going on over there in Florida as well. We're in that Florida swing of the golf season here, Mike, and this is a tournament that was only 69 players to begin. It was top 50 in ties and anyone within 10 that made the cut. We actually did have a cut. There was not everybody was able to stay within 10 of the leader. So a few people will not be playing the weekend, not playing today and tomorrow. Scotty Scheffler is your betting favorite over at DraftKings right now, plus 230. Hideki Matsuyama is at 9-1. Wyndham Clark, 10-1, 11 on Russell Henley, 12 on Will Zalatoris, as is Shane Lowry, 16 on Brian Harman. Victor Hovland comes in at 18, and everyone else 25-1 or longer. Remember these odds that we're talking about here, Mike. These are dynamic. These things are literally changing. It could be even shot by shot once everybody gets going here. So just use these as kind of a reference point as to right now, but literally in an hour, these things could be all kinds of crazy.
Oh, yeah, these are going to adjust quite a bit throughout today's show as well as before tomorrow's final round. You've got 6 players currently tied for the lead. You've got Zalatoris just 1 stroke behind. I was surprised that Scotty was plus 230. I was expecting he'd be a little bit longer just because you do have so many people who are in contention, a bunch of golfers at 5 under as well. So there's a lot of players who could make a move today and drastically adjust these odds here. I know you've got a Zalatoris ticket from the beginning of the tournament. Do you have anyone else you're sweating here at the top?
I have a Grillo top 20, so he's sitting T8 right now. Feel pretty good about that one. I got Sam Burns and Victor Hovland both pre-tournament as well, but they're 3 shots off of the lead, so we'll see how that all plays out. I have Corey Connors as well, but Corey Connors doesn't really have the firepower, I don't think, to come back from 4 strokes down, but I do have him. So I have a lot of guys in the top 20. See if we can get it done here. But if you look at these guys that are tied at 700, Mike, Lowry, Matsuyama, Harmon, Wyndham Clark, Scotty Scheffler, major champion, like all these major champions that are tied at the top of this leaderboard. And let's be honest, this is what golf needed. We had all these long shots, and yeah, it's a fun story for like 2 or 3 weeks, but when triple-digit guys were winning every single week on the PGA Tour, that's not a great thing. You need some name value. You need some guys up at the top of the leaderboard, and finally here, we have some real firepower at the top of this leaderboard. It's going to make for a fun weekend.
Yeah, stars make sports better. Anytime that you see the best in the world that are all competing against each other, it's something you want to tune in and watch, and we haven't got that in golf early in the season. This is the first time we're actually seeing those stars all align.
Let's get to Mike's favorite one here.
Number 3.
Hockey and horses, baby. Let's talk a little pucks and ponies a little bit later in the show as well. Mike gets a whole segment just to himself for us to sit here and talk about hockey and talk about what the horse race is of the week. I know this one is going to be the Tampa Bay Derby. This is one that we lead into the Kentucky Derby as well, Mike. So I'm sure you will have a lot to say here about what goes on over there in Tampa.
Yeah, we've got a couple fun cards today. We've got 3 graded stakes at Santa Anita. We've got just a plethora of stakes at Tampa Bay. This is their biggest day of the year. So you've got 5 graded stakes there. You got a nice pick 5, and it's all capped by the Tampa Bay Derby, their final Kentucky Derby prep leading into it. So we get a lot of interesting horses in that spot. 2 very short prices, one for Chad Brown, one an Iowa bred. We don't generally see Iowa bred horses in these type of prep races, but one the Sam F. Davis, which was the race that was the local prep for this final Kentucky Derby prep. Going to be a really interesting spot. There's a horse that's also called Good Money in there, 15-1 for Chad Brown. Very interesting because he's got the second choice at 8-5 on the morning line. So it's a fun, dynamic race. Looking forward to talking about that one later.
We're going by just names, right? Let's not go with nothing else. We'll talk to producer Steph and the crew behind the glass here on break and decide. But Crazy Mason and Grand Mo the First probably are the 2 if we're going just by name. What do we think about either one of those?
Crazy Mason, probably a crazy bet. Grand Mo the First, a little bit interesting at a big price. It's a horse that I liked at Gulfstream Park last time. Actually scratched out of that race with a fever, so this was the backup plan. Tons of talent. A little hasn't run as much as some of the other horses here. Needs to take a step forward. But this race feels like it's wide open. You have a 7-5 and an 8-5 shots on the morning line. I'm not overly convinced either one is going to be able to win this race easily. I think you got some prices that can run in behind them.
Huge purse for this one too, right?
Yeah, a lot of money up for grabs here at the Tampa Bay Derby. We're going to see these purses grow and grow and grow. Start to get the $1 million races in the final round of the prep. This one at Tampa Bay Downs, I believe $600,000. So a lot of money up for grabs here.
Let's keep it rolling.
Number 4.
So we have, we hone in on the NFL draft a ton here on this program. It is one of our favorite things to bet on the sports calendar each and every year. It's been one of the more profitable things to bet on the sports calendar each and every year, at least for the last 4 years. We'll see how things go this year. Seems they're dragging their feet a little bit on some of these numbers getting put out, Mike, and I get it because it's one thing that they actually lose at a couple of different times over the last few years because it is an informational-based market. You and I can go in and we can start to connect the dots, and then we just play probabilities. Will we put some 9-1s in our account? Sure. That only has to hit 1 out of every 9 times, and we're going to be making that this is going to be a profitable bet. And so when those do hit, and they do hit along the way, we can make some money. So what we're going to do a little bit later in the show is we're going to take I can give you our 5 that are available today, right? That are available today. We're going to give you our 5 best NFL draft bets that you can go and make right now if you went over to DraftKings Sportsbook.
Yeah, and this is a great time to start building a draft portfolio as well. Because this is an information-based market, what we have seen is that you have large shifts in this market. So you have 9-to-1 shots that go off at minus 320. You don't see that in any type of day-to-day market or day-to-day game. You can only get that in these informational-based spots. So getting some nice numbers now allows you to play back in certain spots closer to the draft, and you can create a situation where you've got plus money on the two most likely outcomes at a single pick or for a single team. So a lot of opportunity to get involved now and start building that draft portfolio early.
Yeah, this is one of those, we're getting to the point where we can really start to make a strategy, right? Like we've gotten tags now, so now we know who got tagged. We know who's not going to be available in free agency. Tampering period begins on Monday. Basically Wednesday, free agency will be over because everyone of any sort of any name player will have signed like by Wednesday. And so at that point, Mike, like when we come in here next week, we'll have a good idea of kind of how we want to attack at least the first round. And yes, information will trickle over the next several weeks, but we'll have a pretty good thought process when it comes down to it. Number five. We're going to talk all the basketball. We're going to give you, Seth put us must bets in here. Like you must bet this, and this on the NBA card today. So we'll give you our NBA must bets as well. Tom Casale is going to join us, talk some college basketball as well. So all the basketballs today.
Yeah, ton of bets. I've got one early here. I played High Point -7. They tipped off at 9 a.m. here, so you can get a little bit of in-game if you're interested in some High Point action this morning.
Yeah, High Point. We'll guess the mascot here on the other side whenever we come back talking about High Point. But we are going to talk UFC 299 top to bottom here. What made our betting cards?
This is The Handle with Matt Brown and Mike Summage on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Baseball is back, baby. We got the grapefruit and the cactus leagues going out there. And as you're watching on television, you got it going on in the background and you're wondering, hey, why is this guy number 97? Well, yeah, he's probably not going to make the team, but it doesn't really matter. But you can find out the guys that are whenever you go and get our baseball betting primer, VSiN.com/guide. It is absolutely free. We're talking World Series futures, how to bet on spring training if you are wacky enough to want to do that, talking some sabermetrics and baseball betting as well. Again, absolutely free. Head on over to VSiN.com/guide to get our baseball betting primer. Matt Brown, Mike Summage coming to you here on DraftKings Network and VSiN on a Saturday. You been watching any spring training? You been taking any of the baseball?
No, not yet. It's just too busy right now.
Yeah.
We got like the college basketball has kind of taken over my life here as we've gotten after the NFL, because you actually have some metrics that you can look at for these teams. You understand what the rotations are going to look like, and you've got so many games a day. And now we're moving into the tournament segment. It's hard to find time for something like baseball for me when it is spring training. Now, that being said, Matt, I like betting preseason in a lot of these sports. We talked about it before the NFL season. I'm a big NFL preseason bettor. I feel like you can get edges on the books by simply taking a little bit more time than they do to be able to go out and search the information. And with the MLB preseason, if you want to put the time in, you can find out exactly who's going to be pitching, how many innings they're going to pitch, who's playing, how many innings they're going to play. And you can build something that I think can beat the numbers. It just takes a lot of work, and it's a grind day in and day out when you've got a lot of other things going on.
Yeah, it is. I don't get into the spring training betting. I don't really disparage those that do. I think it's a little wacky because things can just, the guy throws a few too many pitches, they'll pull it. There's all kinds of stuff going on because they're not worried about this. Like they're just trying to get guys ready for the season. We'll talk about the Dodgers a little bit later and what they're going to end up doing with the infield because they have someone that can't throw the ball to first base right now. So your World Series favorite has a guy that can't get it over to first base. But first, let's talk about UFC 299. Going down, we got a bantamweight title fight. We got some really good superstars on the main card as well. Might as well just go ahead and kick things off here with that main event. Mike, it is Sean O'Malley and Marlon Vera. If you take a look, Cheeto is a plus 210 underdog in this one. O'Malley minus 258 currently as the favorite. 4.5 rounds is your over-under. The over is minus 160. Under is plus 124 in this one. So, as you start to kind of break this down, O'Malley, pretty polished fighter. Cheeto is likely to press the action a little bit later in the fight. He starts a little bit slower typically, but he'll do that, kind of sometimes take 3 to give 1 strategy here and there. He does have a couple of knockout wins in his last 5 fights. That being said, they were over guys on the downside of their career for sure. You're looking at Dominic Cruz, 36-year-old, hadn't fought since, and Frankie Edgar, who was clearly on the downside of his career as well. On the O'Malley side of things, though, you look, and he fought Peter Yan, who's also on this card, and we'll talk about him a little bit later. I had that fight scored for Yan, as did a lot of people in the industry. So it's kind of, would Sean O'Malley be where he is at right now had Yan taken that fight? Like, I think that he should have. So it is just a pretty interesting fight, specifically once we start to look at the odds, because the plus 210 that is attached to Chito Vera starts to become a little bit interesting to me.
So that is where I'm leaning here, and that's why I wanted to talk to you about this, because to me, when I started to break down this fight, it looked like 2 separate fights almost, right? The first 2 rounds are going to be or should be dominated by O'Malley. He wants to come out and wants to try and take Vera down and get that knockout or that TKO early in the fight. The later rounds seems like that favors Vera, and so if he's able to weather the storm here of O'Malley, it feels like Vera's got a very good chance to be able to win this fight either by decision or later into the fight. And what really caught me as interesting is that if that is my handicap here, where I think Vera has the advantage if this goes longer, that the over is sitting there at 4.5 rounds at minus 150, because that says it should go the full 5 rounds. And if it does, to me, Vera actually should be a short dog or possibly even kind of a pick 'em in this spot. And he's sitting there at plus 210. So based on where that over under sits, it pushes me toward taking the dog in this spot at the plus money number.
Yeah. I mean, look, we've seen O'Malley. I mean, he's gotten hit in fights, and I think that Chito has a chance to kind of get in there. O'Malley has to deal with drop foot. It's happened a couple different times in fights with him where he'll get kicked in the leg a couple different times, and it's like the foot goes numb and stuff. So like that is always at least in the back of your mind thought that could happen as well. Is he a better fighter? Yes. But the odds were betters, right? And like you start to look, and once we get over that 2-1 on the Vera side of things, I think that that's where my bet will end up going when it's all said and done. I have to believe, though, I think that if we're looking towards Vera, then maybe this is one of those deals where you could also look towards an over. Chito's never been stopped in a fight ever. All 8 of his losses are all by decision. So O'Malley finishing this one is a pretty low probability. And so you've got this super tough fighter who's super durable as well. If he kind of weathers the early storm here, like we said, he typically starts a little bit slower. If he weathers that early storm, I think this thing could end up going all 5 rounds as well. So I think like we're saying, I think there's a couple different ways to kind of make the same bet.
Yeah, I mean, based on what you're saying, I'd like Vera even more at plus 210, because I do think if this goes long, he's got a big advantage in those later rounds. Now, I don't love the idea of going to a decision, especially if I expect O'Malley to come out and jump on him the first couple rounds, because I'd expect that, O'Malley should win at least one, if not both of the first 2 rounds. So if you're going to, if you think this is going the distance and you like Vera, he'd have to win those final 3 rounds to be able to win the fight. So taking the over at minus 150, not a terrible look if you want to hedge out some of your Vera money at plus 210. But I'm look at me. I'm going to go bet some more UFC, Matt. I'm going to take Vera at the plus money.
Dustin Poirier, Benoit Saint Denis in the co-main event. Dustin Poirier is a plus 185 dog, minus 218 on Saint Denis. 1.5 is your over-under there. The over, minus 210. The under, plus 160. So here's the deal, and this is just, it's tough for me. I'm going to say this, like, maybe a little bit of bias. I've known Dustin since he was 16 years old. I've known him. He's a Louisiana kid. It's been a long time. It's tough for me to get to the fact where, he is an older fighter now, and older fighters in the UFC, typically there's a pretty big drop off specifically at these lower weights, right? Like the older guys in the heavier weights, we've seen them have at least a little bit of success go on. You're talking about your Daniel Cormiers and stuff like that, but it's just not a lot in these lower weights. And so that does have me a little bit worried here about Dustin Poirier, but you see a big number attached to Dustin Poirier. And, as good as Saint Denis has been, as good as Saint Denis has looked, wonder if this thing goes into that second and third round, if St. Denis can't get it done in the first round, if he's out there being super, super active, which I think he probably will. I think he's going to try to go to work on Dustin's legs, try to soften him up a little bit, try to work for some takedowns and things like that, which would be his big advantage. Dustin's takedown defense, not all that great. But if he can weather the storm in that first round and we can get an even juicier price on Poirier live and, to kind of get this thing done in second and third round, I think that's the direction that I'm going to look here in this one.
Yeah, this is very similar to the last fight where I expect St. Denis to be able to come out swinging, and it's can Poirier last through that first and second round? If he can, I think he's got a legitimate shot in this fight. He's, if you look at St. Denis, he's never faced anyone in the top 10 in the UFC. He's never gone in a 5-round fight before, so there's some serious question marks about whether or not he's going to be able to go long in this fight and whether or not he's going to be able to handle someone who's at Poirier's level. So the plus 180 price, I agree with you. I think is pretty attractive here, and this is another one where it's interesting that we're seeing the over at -1 at 1.5 rounds sitting there at -210. If we go over that -1, that 1.5 rounds, again, I think this favors Poirier because the longer this fight goes, I think that his experience and the fact that St. Denis is going to tire himself out is all benefiting the dog in this spot. So another one where, if you like the under here, I think you like St. Denis. If you like the over, I think you have to lean toward Poirier.
Yeah, and listen, Dustin's coming off of a knockout. That being said, it was 7 months ago. It wasn't a quick turnaround or anything like that. And you look though, I think if you like St. Denis, you could also look at like a KO prop because you just think Dustin's washed, right? I mean, like you're part of the handicap is you just think, hey, he's old and he can't take it anymore, right? And so I think you could look at even a KO prop, something like that, maybe even an under as well if you like St. Denis. If you like Poirier, as you mentioned, I think you should be leaning a little bit more towards the over in all of this. But I think a knockout prop for Dustin isn't crazy either. St. Denis has been hit. St. Denis has been tagged, and there's not a lot of guys who have the power at that weight class that Dustin Poirier has. So I think that's another way that you could take a look at this one for sure. We will hit other cards, other fights on the card as we talk to Jimmy Smith. I have a play in the Gilbert Burns, Jack Della Maddalena fight, so I do have that one. I actually have a fight in the Peter Yan and Song Yadong fight as well. So we'll circle back around to the other couple of fights here on the main card. Mike, what else are you looking at here at UFC 299?
For me, I was excited about the heavyweight matchup that we've got. It's Beldez versus Alameda. I hope I'm pronouncing both those, but it's an interesting heavyweights match where they're both more of the grappler style. Usually with these heavyweight matches, it's just punch, punch, punch. These guys both want to get to the ground. I think that fight's going to be very interesting from a wrestling perspective, and who at that heavyweight level is going to be able to dominate that fight.
When we come back, Thomas Casale is going to join us here. We're going to talk some college basketball picks with him. Does he like Kentucky today? Maybe he's got some thoughts on Duke UNC, all of that. So we will get his college basketball thoughts. I'm sure, Mike, you have a couple as well since you already are on the High Point Unicorns.
Panthers, close.
Well, we were close. So we'll get back to that. College basketball when we come back.
This is The Handle with Matt Brown and Mike Summage on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We know you want to see what we have to offer at VSiN Pro, and we're going to let you do it for free. Head on over. If you are not registered yet, create a free account today. Get VSiN Pro access to everything we do through the NCAA Championship Week leading up to Selection Sunday. VSiN.com/Champ Week. To get instant VSiN Pro access, and that gets you all the stuff that we talk about. You get the pro picks, you get all of the premium analysis, 24/7 video access, the betting systems, all of the everything that you know and love about the VSiN Pro subscription. It is our free preview. You get it now if you go to VSiN.com/Champ Week, now through March the 17th. Now joining us here on the Progressive Guest Line, Tom Casale. He's a college basketball and college football analyst for Sportsline, also sports betting director for a place near and dear to my heart, NOLA.com. Welcome in, Tom Casale. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
I've lost the accent. Originally from Louisiana myself. I don't have it anymore. You still have it. I can tell instantly as soon as the 3 words that came out of your mouth right there.
Yeah, well, I'm actually from the Northeast, so maybe
You've
adopted
a little bit of the New Orleans. You adopted a little bit of this, from the New Orleans being down there. All right, Tom. So let's head into college basketball picks here. You are liking Kentucky today. What do you like about taking the points with Big Blue?
Well, I thought the number opened a little high at 9.5. It's around 7 now, which is where I thought it should be. See, the thing about Kentucky is, and I took them when they played Auburn when they were a big dog, they're a hard team to blow out because they score so many points. They've only been beaten by double digits twice all year. Now, one of those games was against Tennessee, but Kentucky scored 92 points in that game. It's hard to lose a game by double digits for a Power 5 team when you score 92 points, but that's when the Wildcats were playing their worst basketball of the season. Their defense still isn't great by any means, but it was really, really bad back then. Just a complete lack of effort. So I think Kentucky has shown they can score on this Tennessee defense. I think this is going to be a good game. Again, 7.5. I still think is worth a look. It was the number was the wrong opener. I thought at 9.5. But the other thing to remember too, and it's not that Tennessee won't care about this game, but they did clinch the SEC regular season title on Wednesday, and a lot of the guys were pointing to their ring fingers. So I think you see an inspired effort by Kentucky today, and I think you have a game that goes down in the final couple minutes.
Hey, you mentioned the previous matchup. That was a 103-92 game for Tennessee, the win. They score over 190 points in that game, and yet the total here sitting at 166.5. Do you think we have a repeat and we go way over this total again? Does it feel a little low to you, or do you think this is one where you just kind of sit back and stay away because of Tennessee's motivation?
Well, I'll be honest. I'm not going to be taking any unders when Kentucky plays. You have a team that scores 90 regularly, which isn't normal in the SEC, and you have a team whose defense is ranked 100th in defensive efficiency on KenPom. So you're going to see points. The only way this game probably doesn't go over the 166 is if one of the teams or both are cold. You can't always project how shooting's going to go, but I think the pace will be there, and I think both teams will have easy opportunities near the basket throughout the game. So, yeah, I certainly wouldn't take the under on this number.
We should note that game going off here in about 3.5 hours, and it is a little bit juiced on that 7.5. So you might see 8 again if you want to get a little bit better number, the number closer to what Tom got. Tom, looking here at James Madison and Marshall, line moving in your favor for sure here on this one, all the way out to 12 in favor of James Madison. 153 is the total. What do you like in this one?
Yeah, I rarely bet double-digit favorites in college basketball, but I was waiting to see who won that Georgia State Marshall game, and because this is a bad matchup for Marshall. They lost to James Madison twice in the regular season by a total of 41 points. They like to play fast. They like to go up and down the court. James Madison likes to play the same way, but they have a lot more talent. And the other thing, too, is Marshall lives and dies by the three. James Madison, one of the top three-point defenses in the country. In both the meetings this year, James Madison had a 10-0 run in those games. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen that before between common opponents in two games in the same year. But that's the kind of game it's going to be. It's going to be back and forth. So I think even if the game is close for a while in the second half, it's just going to be too much James Madison. They have too much talent. I think they win this game going away.
A marquee game of the day, number 7, North Carolina heading in to take on number 9, Duke at Cameron Indoor. Should be a phenomenal basketball game. Two blue bloods who are preparing for the tournament here. Do you like anything tonight in this spot? And what do you think of the chances of these two teams once they do make the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, it's an interesting game. I have North Carolina 30-1. I got them a while ago to win it all. I think they're one of the teams that can cut down the nets. I think this is a good spot for Duke. I don't like the number in this game. I can't get there with 5. If this was like 2.5, 3, I might, take a shot with Duke. I think coming home after Carolina beat them. The other thing, too, is I don't know if this is a great matchup overall for Duke. You beat Duke by bullying them in the paint. And Carolina has the guy to do that in Baycott. He had a big game in that first meeting, and I think they're going to try the same thing. I do think Duke's three-point shooters will give North Carolina trouble. 149.5. I'll be honest, I leaned the under in the first matchup, but I think it went over by halftime. I mean, they couldn't miss a shot. I kind of like the way both offenses match up with each other. So I think when you looked at how last game went, 149.5 is a little low on the total. I think you see another game where both teams score points.
Talking to Tom Casale here on the Progressive Guest Line. He is at Sportsline over at NOLA.com as well. Let's look at Kansas and Houston. This one is 8 currently in favor of Houston. 139 is the total.
Yeah, that's another one where the spot says Houston, but I just can't lay 8 in the game. I'm not a fan of this Kansas team at all. They're not very deep. I don't think they do a ton of things well. If you're looking in the tournament for one of these higher seeds to bow out early, Kansas is near the top of my list. When you look at this game, Houston, this is to me is a live bet situation. I want to see how this game goes early. If Houston's being physical with them down low and Kansas is having trouble, because Kansas is only going to score from inside the arc. They don't shoot a lot of threes. So that to me is the matchup. Hunter Dickinson, who, sometimes plays a little soft, let's be honest. They're going to try to bully him around. So I think watch that matchup early. I do lean Houston here. I don't like the number 8. This is more, I think you'll be able to get a live betting situation. But second half, I think it's going to be too much Houston at home.
Now, you mentioned Kansas, a team that you're looking forward to fading once we get into March Madness. You mentioned the North Carolina Future. I like that one. I've got them at a worse number, but I do have North Carolina to win it all as well. Are there any other teams that you're pointing toward either fading or playing on once we get into the tournament?
Well, a couple of teams I got really early on. One was last April in Florida and Iowa State. I got them both at 100-1. Those are teams I think that can do some damage in the tournament. Iowa State's offense, similar to Tennessee, is better than it has been in recent years. Now, the Cyclones got to get out of those early rounds, not put up a 55-point stinker, which they can do at times. But I think they're going to be a tough matchup for teams. And Florida, to me, is one of those teams sitting there in the 7, 8, 9 range where they'll be in the tournament. They're going to be a deadly second-round team. They're one of the top offensive rebounding teams in the country, and I think you need that in the tournament for when you're not shooting the ball great. So I think they can make a little bit of a run too. A team to me that's going to be interesting is Kentucky. That's a team that has the talent to go all the way, but you don't see too many teams with a defensive efficiency of 100 make long runs in the tournament. So I think they're the most interesting. And a team I'm going to fade probably, Alabama's one of them. I don't think Alabama's going to go very far, but also Illinois. Very similar. They don't play, not a lot of effort on defense a lot of the times. I know some people like Illinois. To me, the Big Ten is really down. It's Purdue and everybody else. So in general, I'll look to fade some of these Big Ten teams early on in the tournament.
Tom, we got about 30, 45 seconds. Let's say somebody had $100 today based off the odds they can currently get right this second. Where should they put their $100 for the tournament?
Yeah, I know people, they're going to say, they're nervous about Rick Barnes in March and everything. I think, to me, the two most complete teams I've watched all year are UConn and Tennessee. I think they can beat you any kind of way. So Tennessee's still sitting there at 10-1. I think they finally have the ingredients to make a deep run. So if you were going to bet one team right now, even though win or lose today, I would go with the Vols.
Hey, you could turn that 100 into 1,000. Ain't nobody going to complain about that. That is for sure. You can find him over at Sportsline, also at NOLA.com. He is Tom Casale. Thanks for the time today, buddy. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
So, Mike, we sit here and we don't expect a lot of times that while we're on air that we're going to get things come through our Twitter machine that we go, oh, wow, that is really worth talking about and could shake up something in the betting landscape. We had a big trade in the NFL, and we'll talk about that when we come back here on The Handle.
This is The Handle with Matt Brown and Mike Summage on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
This deal was so incredibly popular, we brought it back just for you. If you are a new customer out there, you do not have a DraftKings Sportsbook account quite yet. Well, guess what? We're going to talk you into it. Go in. Use the promo code VSiN when you download that app. When you make your first deposit, we are going to give you a no sweat bet up to $1,000. Yes, your first bet, whatever it might be, should it not get home, we will give you that amount back up to $1,000 in bonus bets into your account. But you have to use the promo code VSiN, VSIN, when you go and sign up DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. Matt Brown, Mike Somich back on just the progressive normal line. This is just our normal line, not the guest line, just the normal line.
I'm kind of on the progressive guest line, right?
Yeah, kind of, sort of. We should just put, we should get you a face tattoo or something. You just sit there with a little something on your cheek the whole time.
Give me a nice progressive hat. I can throw it on.
So as we said, it was a long tease. It went over the break. You're driving in your car and you're going, Matt, Mike, pay it off, dude. I'm sitting here driving and you didn't tell me what's going on. So coming through the Twitter machine, Adam Schefter. The Cleveland Browns have made a trade with the Denver Broncos. Jerry Jeudy is heading to Cleveland for a 5th and a 6th round draft pick. It is kind of a one-year rental type deal. There's 1 year left on Jerry Jeudy's contract, and he'll make about $13 million. But, Mike, as we were talking about off air, hey, if he's good, you look to re-sign him. If he's not good, if he really is just a bust, which we haven't really been able to tell with Jerry Jeudy whether we think he's good or not good. He's just somewhere in the middle. It's like the most meh guy in the NFL with someone that came in with such a high pedigree, but you just let him walk if he's not any good. So, yeah, it'll cost you $13 million to find out, but if you're the Browns and you're in a division that's going to be super, super, super competitive, you needed a true number 2 there with Amari Cooper, and now Njoku is your third option. That is a pretty potent offense there for Cleveland.
Yeah, this feels like a win-win to me. I mean, if you're Denver, it clearly isn't working in Denver for Jeudy. So getting something back for him is a positive for that Denver organization. They get to not have to deal with that $13 million. We already know about all the dead cap money they've got with Russell Wilson.
Clears the space for Marvin Mims too. That was a problem too. They were having trouble finding a spot for him, getting him on the field. So at least now they spent a draft pick on him. So it's like, okay, buddy, it's yours now. Yeah. It's yours.
It's a win there in my mind for Denver because they do get something back for an asset that they were not going to retain. Let's be honest. They weren't keeping Jeudy after this year. And from a Cleveland perspective, I think this makes a ton of sense for him. Jeudy, if you watch him play, he's a guy who clearly is financially motivated, and he also has effort issues every now and then. It feels like in a contract year, you're going to get the best version of Jerry Jeudy. He's just one of those classic guys where I expect him to play hard and play well inside this offense. He has a lot of mental mistakes he makes. I remember him dragging his feet a couple times, both in the end zone and on the sidelines last year for that Denver team. But if this Cleveland team comes back healthy now, if you get Chubb back, the offensive line gets healthy again, we'll see what version of Watson we get. It feels like we kind of know what that is now. We're not going to see that Watson from Houston. But with multiple receivers now as targets, and you mentioned Njoku sitting there as the third option, with Chubb, this becomes a really, really good offense that complements that defense that was so good last year. So the arms race just kind of continues here in that AFC North.
And then we remind everyone, oh, by the way, it is a division that includes the Ravens, the Bengals, who will get Joe Burrow back, and the Steelers with whoever ends up manning their quarterback position. But that being said, they have a bunch of weapons as well and figured out ways to win games, even when they probably shouldn't have this past year at going 10-7. We said it last year heading into the season, Mike, that was the division of death. And again, it looks like it is setting up again to be the division of death.
Yeah, it's going to be incredibly hard to come out of it. I mean, Baltimore was fortunate last year. Injuries really riddled some of the teams inside that division. We'll see if they're able to repeat that performance if everyone stays healthy. We saw Cincinnati decide to tag T. Higgins, so they're going to have their big 2 wide receivers back as well. We'll see what they end up doing in the backfield and if they try and revamp that defense a little bit. The Browns should be a lot better than they were last year, and they won 10 games. They made the playoffs even with that. So this division is going to be incredibly tough, and when you look at the pricing, the plus 110 on the Ravens feels way too short for me. I would much rather play the Bengals at plus 160 or the Browns at plus 550 than take the Ravens as the favorite in this division. They needed everything to go right to get back to that position, and that roster is going to be very different than what we saw last year as well. I trust the organization and that they're going to be able to rebuild, but at the same time, these other teams are just loading up to come after them in that top spot.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun division. We'll talk about this one a little bit more here in the program as we get going. But that Cleveland Browns team, 5th rounder for Amari Cooper and now a 5th and a 6th for Jerry Jeudy. And if Jerry Jeudy works out even 75% of what Amari Cooper has worked out for them, I mean, absolute steals for them to get that wide receiver position all locked down. All right, so let's head over to the Arnold Palmer. And as we mentioned, we have a ton of guys. They all tee off here in about 45 minutes, and they are all tied at 7 under. That includes major winner Scotty Scheffler, major winner Wyndham Clark, major winner Brian Harman, major winner Hideki Matsuyama. A lot of big-name dudes that are 7 under in this tournament. And now we have some guys who have gone out early on here over at Bay Hill. Andrew Putnam has made a run. He's 3 under through 6. Lee Hodges has gone 2 under through 4. They've put themselves into the conversation as well here, Mike. And so it's, the winner is likely to come from that group that's already sitting, on second base here whenever we're talking about being at 7 under. But I mean, it's not crazy to think that one of these dudes that is at least a couple of shots off could come back. Now, I don't think we're going to see some epic run from someone 2 under or anything like that. The course is just playing too tough. As the week has gone on, the winds have dried out these greens. I don't know if anyone was watching this yesterday, but the thuds that was coming, the sound, you could hear it when the golf ball would hit these greens, Mike, and you're just going, this is impossible. These dudes are hitting amazing shots, and the balls are just rolling right off the back of the green, where like you and I would be like slamming clubs into the ground. We would be doing all kinds of craziness, and they just kind of look at their caddy and grin. They're just like, yeah, well, whatever, it's Bay Hill.
I don't know, man. I got a really high ball flight. I can handle those harder greens because the call comes in so high that we don't get very much roll on it. So maybe I should be out there this weekend playing Bay Hill with these guys. Look, it's gettable today. That's the one thing that's jumped out to me. Keegan Bradley 2 under, Jason Day 3 under. They're further down the leaderboard that they're still able to score today. So I think we're going to have some people come out and be able to put low scores in. Do I want to take someone outside of? I'll go down to Victor Hovland, who's sitting there at 6 to 1. I'm sorry. I'll go down to Zalatoris, who's sitting there at 6 to 1. Everyone above him, I think, is in play there. So the 6 guys who are at 7 to 1, as well as Zalatoris. It's going to be tough because I would expect, with the pedigree we have up that high, that somebody is able to go out and shoot 3 under, 4 under. And if they do in this spot, it becomes very difficult to chase them down from the back because you'd need a 7, 8 under and then to be able to shoot well again tomorrow. That seems like it's a tall task. So I agree with you. To me, it's one of those top 7 if you're looking for someone to win the tournament now. I have no interest in Scotty Scheffler. They're plus 230. I think with this much contention and this many good golfers that are up there, I'd much rather take a price here. I'll ask you the same question you asked our guests last segment. If I give you $100, who are you betting on to win this tournament right now?
Zalatoris. He's only a shot off the lead starting, and you look yesterday, clean card for him. Now, not a lot of birdies. He shot 3 under, and it was just 3 birdies and a whole bunch of pars. But listen, if you're not bogeying over at Bay Hill, and especially the way Bay Hill was playing yesterday, that's steps in the right direction. The things we were worried about with Zalatoris, all the injury stuff that was going on with him when he first came back, he did not look himself. And I think he is rounding into form. I think he is a guy that is starting to look good. I answered a guy on Twitter after round 1, and they said, hey, is there anybody that you're looking at, here for this tournament? And I said, well, the first 2 guys off my card were Minwoo Lee and Will Zalatoris. I think I'm probably going to take a stab on Willie Z. And so I have a not the best number on Zalatoris, but enough to have a heavy rooting interest in him for this tournament because it was just a guy that I felt like had gotten over what was making us not want to bet him, which was the fact that he was kind of playing hurt out there. And so the game is there. We know. We've seen Zalatoris. I mean, he was the guy that we were sitting here going like, this guy's going to win a ton of tournaments, and then the injury bug hit him. And so for me at 11 to 1, at only a stroke off, having a clean card yesterday, which is very, very hard to do. I like Willie Z for the $100 bet.
Yeah, I mean, the 11 to 1 price is not a bad one at all. I've fallen victim to Willie Z in the past. I've had him in a couple spots where he's lost for me, but it's okay. He and Hovland, they both owe me money, but they'll pay me back at some point.
Trust me, Hovland owes me a lot of money as well. Yes, along the way.
Last year was brutal with Hovland. Actually, 2 years ago was brutal with Hovland as well. He kept losing and running second in some of those majors. Any interest in Matsuyama sitting there in second? We saw him absolutely fly home in a final round earlier this year. He seems like he's playing really good golf right now.
The problem. So I'm the last guy you should ask about Hideki. I never bet Hideki. I never. It's just like the roller coaster ride of Hideki is something else, right? I mean, like the dude plays 3 holes where you're like, this is the best golfer in the world, and then he plays 3 holes where you're just going like, what in the hell is going on with this guy? So I don't know. I at those odds, I don't think that would be the bet for me. At those odds, I don't think that would be the bet for me. I think Willie Z would be the guy, and we'll see how it goes. Scotty Scheffler's going to win, but, whatever. I mean, it's just...
Come on. We're not cashing plus 260. We're getting it at 230. We're getting a number home here.
On the other side, let's talk to Jimmy Smith, see what he thinks about UFC 299.